And here we go.
Okay, so this is just another test, and we're going to chat about process and stuff like that. So, so we're talking about time slot first. So you were saying, like, what, later? We need to begin. You and I need to sit down a good X amount of time before going live, just to run audio checks, make sure you're not going to run out of disk space, and maybe we'd have a checklist of stuff to go through, right? So we'll call it like a pre-live checklist.
Thankfully, the great thing about Audacity, or the good thing about this program down at the bottom, I didn't realize, but it says disk space remaining for recording 6 hours and 14 minutes.
Yeah, that's going to be useful. So X hours. Okay, so the question becomes, how much time would we need beforehand, or should we just allot? And when should a stream start? So because we're North America, we need to think about East-West time zones. We're not... Okay, and so what we need to think about is in terms of East-West coast, to make sure it doesn't start too early so people come home from work, and it doesn't start too late so that people can stay for the entirety of the stream without being tired. And this directly competes with a whole lot of stuff for an extremely important time slot, for lack of a word. Or is that two words? So the question becomes, when is when? Like, because theoretically you could start at 5, right? And that would be 8. So I think in terms of how after work West Coast and how late East Coast. So if it's like 5 o'clock West Coast, 8 o'clock East Coast, and if it's 2 or 3 hours, or like even, because remember the 60-minute, 10-minute thing, that technically means it's like a 3-hour and 20-minute show if we do that because of 2 breaks. Or we can make it 50 minutes, 10 minutes, right? And just line it up really well. That way it's not confusing. So if it's
50-10 with a 10-minute buffer, or the 10 to 15 with a 10 to 20 minute overflow.
Sure. I mean, just for...
If the topic is good, but you can't stop there. And...
You can't. I mean, yeah, okay. I understand that. I really never... So overflowing at the end, I don't mind, but I really don't want to step over that 15-minute mark so that people can know and predict, because we talked about this earlier. And it's going to be important for us as well, which is why I was about to ask.
If it can't be helped, but...
Okay, so the question becomes, when do you want to start? Well, that's going to screw up the math on 50-10. Can you deal with that weirdness? Okay, well, when's our first break? Our first break would be... That's going to hurt people's brains. I'd rather start on an hour. Because
the thing is, you start on an hour, you give some people time to come home, rest, or just do things, and then...
So why not start at 6? I said starting at 9 East Coast.
It feels a bit later than...
It'd be 9 to...
It's a bit later. It'll feel like it's a bit later than...
I'm confused. So 5...
Assuming, let's say, 3 hours.
Why don't you just make it like a... So start at 5:30 and then, 20 minutes and then 10-minute break? But I think yeah, it's probably a bad idea.
That wouldn't be good. At that point, you're like a TV. You're like just a TV show.
Okay, so make a decision. 6.
6.
Okay, so 6 and then 3 hours. So that's starting at 9 o'clock Eastern time. Isn't the East Coast way more popular? Like way more populous? Because it's closer to Europe, so it was colonized first.
Yeah, but then there's LA, which is like West Coast, and
Yeah, West Coast is a whole lot of people as well, but I think it's less.
I mean, California is more than Canada.
Yeah, California is like the third largest GDP in the world or something stupid. It's preposterous, and it was run by a movie star from Austria. And yeah, and it's in terrible, terrible shape right now. It's
Everywhere is a terrible shape.
well, no, I think California has the resurgence of the Black Plague, like the literal actual Black Death. It's pretty. It's pretty bad.
Why is going back to the time? Why does it feel weird for 5:30?
Well, because then I'd have to do math every single time in my head to know. So we'd have to be aiming for what 6 when the first break is 6:20, and then come back at 6:30, and the next break is 7:20. That just seems a little wrong to me.
How?
But we can start that. It's because in English we think in terms of hours way more. Piece of trivia: the Dutch actually think in terms of half hour. It's actually cooked into language. The things that I know, right? And a couple other places actually cook it into. I think they do it. They do it like 15 minutes past the half of the hour. I don't fully understand. I might be explaining it wrong too.
No, Spanish just does it in like 15 chunks.
Yeah, well, we do it in 15 chunks, but we'll say like quarter after and quarter to, whereas other places will say quarter past the half.
What?
We would say like 1:45. Other places would say quarter past 1:30. It's a language thing. Yeah, it's
quarter past half, 15 to.
Yeah. So anyhow, so you want to experiment with the X? So you want to start at 5:30?
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Because again, just because people when they get home around this on the Pacific West Coast, they can come home and just be ready to go in half an hour.
And I guess 11:30 doesn't sound as late as midnight. So ending at 11:30 does sound pretty good.
I'll give you like 6, and it's an hour of time. I'm sure you have stuff to fill over that.
Yeah. So one of the concerns is we're going to be picking up background sound like that constantly. I've actually thought about moving this downstairs. Garage is not ready for something like this. But I'd have to clean up the room down there because it's on the other side of the house, and we're not going to get that.
What room? The garage room?
So, I mean, the garage, fine. Space can always be made in a garage, but it gets cold. We're Northern Hemisphere, so it's summertime now, so it doesn't actually get hot in there. So that's.
It hasn't been hot really all right now.
But it will get cold, so we're fine for the summer. But that's not a good long-term solution unless we pad the place. And I know other podcaster, webcaster type people that convert their garage and stuff like that. But it's not like this is a professional. It's not like we know what we're doing and we're investing anything into this. Theoretically, curtains can be put up to muffle some of the sound and move it into the living room or something like that. Move the couch out of the way. Theoretically, right? But room downstairs is probably the only thing that we can actually do. So the other choice is doing this much earlier in the day to do the recording and then do the broadcast not live, so it's recorded live and then just rebroadcast at that time. That way, I mean, we're only picking up air traffic, and dogs.
Well, if we want to do that, then we'll just do like a 2-hour recording live and then a 3-hour rebroadcast.
Well, and with some prepared stuff in between, that's a lot of extra work to figure out what to insert. Right? So, I mean, that's advanced stuff, like video editing stuff to actually be interesting is, right? So, okay, so we're screwed, basically, right? So, because really live interaction is really, really urgent, is really important, is actually the primary driver of success. Is the personalness of interacting with people live. And especially if it's like live questions or like people will leverage, what does YouTube call it? YouTube and Twitch have concepts of live stream tipping. And people ask questions in the headers doing that. And my brain just fizzled out. I can't actually remember this stuff right offhand. It's actually kind of hot here. So right now, tentatively, it's up here. Okay. And it's just going to be bad, which is fine. And then what I'm going to have to do is, kind of empty out the room down there, clean it up, and then make it appropriate, which is fine. I mean, that's good motivation for like turning what is kind of an awkward library into not exactly a recording studio, but someplace out of the way.
Well, the only issue is when laundry's done.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's an extra problem. Thanks.
It can't be done.
So, afternoon thing, I suppose. We cater to the Europeans, right? So it makes it impossible to do live, which means it's just a pre-recorded thing, in the middle of the night where it's quiet, or in the middle of the afternoon and just tell people to not do laundry, or middle of the afternoon, the house is not necessarily empty, right? There might be somebody home occasionally.
So you just play around with the times from now to find out a good spot.
Well, okay, we'll begin. What time?
I have no idea.
Okay, so we're going to do it at this time then. So we're going to do 5:30 and just cope and possibly mute or whatever as practice and not necessarily do it live. What we might be able to figure out is positioning. So I might sit over here, point the microphone a little differently. It will help mute any background sound from somebody in the kitchen. Theoretically speaking, we could move to the living room and do something of the same, and that might help. I don't think any muffling would happen.
The sound.
More distance, right? And slightly more of a wall that's in the way. Now, theoretically speaking, curtains can be put up, and theoretically speaking, there are blackout curtains and stuff like that are just naturally thicker. And there are almost certainly some kind of muffling material hangable. So theoretically speaking, a box can be drawn around the room. We'll put it right there. Theoretically speaking, right? So at least that noise is lessened. That's really the only choice in terms of that particular time of day. Yeah. Then the concern would be like a door or something like that. Right? So kind of screwed. Okay, what time is it?
4:30.
It's the bottom right of your computer. You could look. The guy reaches for his phone.
I have to go like that.
Oh, why do you hide your taskbar? That's the dumbest thing.
More space?
More space, I guess. Tiny little... He's on a laptop, so tiny little laptop screen. What is it?
I do it on my main computer as well.
Do you? God. 2 monitors and you still hide your taskbar. I actually have special software to duplicate my taskbar on my other monitor to have extra functionality on that as well. I know there's a feature already built into Windows to do that, but I duplicate my tray and this kind of stuff. Anyhow.
That's by default.
I can't remember what fiddly stuff I get out of. I can't remember the name of the software. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I mean, maybe I'll look it up when I listen to this again and add notes. At any rate, that was a divergence. Okay, so we'll just suffer. Okay, so we're going to suffer until I still think the best bet is clean the library, and then maybe it's 2 days a week, right? So maybe we just request that the laundry not be done 2 days a week at that time, which isn't a huge deal. And I think that, yeah, so we'll just have to communicate a little bit better and do that. Okay, so I'll make a note of that, because I had been kind of thinking about this problem earlier, and I wasn't sure if I want to go through the work of cleaning up down there or what's going on. That's the only choice we've got. And it is possible to clean it up so that it's perfectly livable. So it's less clutter and everything. So that's, I mean, we can consider that for the future. That might be weeks away. Okay, no big deal. Let's actually be useful. What time is it?
4:34, 2 minutes past.
4:34. Okay, so we still want to do the 50-10 right now. So what are we declaring that as? 20 minutes past? We may as well begin that process now. Okay. So at 20 minutes past, we'll take a 10-minute break. Like for real, you and I will actually take a break and we'll pause the recording. Normally we would have something that we'd insert. Okay, so what's the right way of having a counter of some sort, a timer that will let us know when we're approaching that hard wall? And it should be a pretty hard wall where we stop at our 50 mark.
Use that.
Use a phone and put an alarm on it?
Yeah. So
you'd have what? You'd have the 50 alarm, the 10 alarm, the 50 alarm, the 10 alarm, because you can't fiddle with that. So you'd have to set up the hour meeting time, so that for the test prep, then the launch time, 50-minute mark, 10-minute mark, 50, 10, 50. You would have to set all those alarms up
until something better is thought of.
Okay, so
temporarily.
And you can you do that? You don't show me you doing that. Just tell me if you can do that. Okay, so I'm going to be going through this and actually writing up tasks for next time slot for us to produce stuff. Okay, so I got a page full of notes, and I did want us to wait to talk about stuff, even though we talked a little bit in our spare time. Now, I'll repeat that. Should probably just slap space and pause that rather than make me mute the microphone, because I'd have to edit that crap out. Anyhow, so page of notes. So I think I will take it upon myself as my responsibility to eat my own dog food, listen to a session, to go through it, take notes, and to pull out stuff that say would need to be researched as additional talking points for the next thing. So for example, let's say for some reason we're talking about news or some garbage like that, or we're talking about some piece of trivia, and I'm just rambling stuff off the cuff. I would listen to that later. I would make a note like, oh, I mentioned this thing about this piece of software that I use. Like, is that actually interesting enough? Maybe it happened to be interesting enough that I go and I'd figure out what I'm using. And then for the next episode, I'd be like, oh, yeah, it's this program. Or if I find out that I'm wrong because I go and actually research the thing, then I come back next episode and apologize profusely and grovel to the audience. And, oh, my God, I was making stuff up previous episode. I'm wrong. Here's the correct information. So I could actually that is a segment of stuff that could be prepared, or it's a segment of stuff that is a prompt for a future episode, right? So it is my intention to listen to that stuff, take notes, produce ideas for next time. So that's something that I can do. What else? Okay, so for the recording, what I like to do is okay. So let's start with the yesterday. It happened to be yesterday when we were doing this exact same thing. You did an export as FLAC, which is fine unless we modify it. And if it's modified, I'll have to show you the procedure where you can go into... We're using Audacity, guys. So there's a way for you to go in and delete the history to save some space. And you can leave the project as is. There's a save as compressed version of it. I'm not familiar enough to know if that's going to actually lose any data. But I do believe that it dumps everything as, I think in that case, I think it's an OGG file. What is that? OGG Vorbis? Not OGG Theora, that's video. And it will dump it as an OGG, and it will still refer to it, so you still have any modification points and stuff like that. So Audacity will still be fully functional for that project, but it will take up less hard drive space. And so there's going to be a process that I will have to show you for that kind of stuff. So let me compress. Okay, so got it. And in this particular case, I am taking notes. Wow. I probably shouldn't even bother since I'm supposed to be listening to this in the future anyway.
Well, I'll just press for this one time.
Yeah, it's helping me. Okay, so let's talk about that previous project. So I had you exported as a FLAC, and that's fine for stuff that doesn't need any editing, and it lets you delete the previous thing. So the way I foresee organization for stuff is we maintain a template, and so we begin a new project in Audacity. We'd adjust any settings that need to be adjusted. We would save that as a project, and whenever we're approaching a new day, what we do is that we'd copy that template into something new, rename it, which is actually renaming a folder and renaming one file, and launch that to get into Audacity to use that project. So you wouldn't launch an empty Audacity, go file, save as, go and search for the folder. You'd actually in Explorer go to this webcast directory. So you'd have that template folder, and you'd use it that way in the way I described. And then once it's done, what you would do is you would take that, you would put it into a folder that is the date that it was recorded. So 2020, 06, whatever day, that kind of stuff. And that's so that it can be actually found and sorted. But even that FLAC would go into a folder called that, because all of the associated information that is pertinent for that thing. So it could be the break commercials. It could be the other resources that were talked about, stuff that, it could be the Audacity data itself, which is more than one file, shoved into that subfolder. So you can imagine that there would be a past episode folder. So you look at the project folder, we go project, and then in project you'd see template, and then you just copy that template and use it. And you'd also have something called archives. You look in archives and it would have date going down for all of the previous stuff. And it might be date and then the title just as a quick memory jog.
So let's say one folder for everything, and then inside that folder, and then we'll folder there with everything that happened in that day.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, everything that happened. So the Audacity, the FLAC file, and then any notes or anything that was done?
Yes.
Okay.
I think you understand. So we sit down the day, and the day would begin with just copying a template folder out. And that template folder would have more than just that Audacity blank project or that prepared thing or whatever the heck, because we don't know how complex that's going to be. It could have video editing software with a track setup and stuff like that, already having references to title cards and other scenes and whatever the heck that could be pre-prepared in part of that template as a different set of stuff in that directory called templates. And it would just, and we might have a separate folder called resources or whatever the heck, and that would have the actual data for a lot of stuff. That would have the actual video commercials or whatever, and it's just referred to by that video project or by whatever the heck, as well as any process notes, any checklists, any stuff like that. So that template, you copying it over, there would be one text file in there that's like an overview text file that I will help you create, that will go through and it will say, okay, step 1, copy this folder out into something else. Close this file. Go into that folder and open this file again. Okay, step 2. Well, that's step 3 actually. And then the next step is, okay, now open double click this file. It will open Audacity. In Audacity, this is how you begin recording. This is how you check your disk space, do an audio check beforehand, do a stream check on, maybe we'll have a second account set up just for doing stream testing. Check YouTube working. If we're using something like there's a restreamer that I've used. Check that DLive is working and YouTube and all these kinds of things. And it would have the list, and that would be, we would give ample time to run through the checklist and additional time for if we find a problem we need to troubleshoot. Right? So it could come down to like maybe there was a major software update or something like that, and our computers in another room are off busy downloading stupid things and the net connection goes to crap or something happens. There will be troubleshooting time for us to figure that stuff out. Okay? So that might take 20 minutes.
You gotta punch in the computer to check for updates as well.
Maybe yes, maybe no. So that's why I started with maybe you begin sitting down by rebooting. No matter what. Yeah. Just it's like the Windows it's Windows 98 days. Like, okay, it's morning, better reboot or it'll just die by the end of the day. So, and the thing is, one of the things that happens generally speaking on reboots is so for example, Windows 10 has a Windows Defender process that goes through and idly mucks about doing stuff, and it will spike up CPU usage something fierce. It tends to not be noticeable. I will notice it, and we're not doing anything that's particularly CPU intensive, but stuff like that will spike up on reboot when you first log in and stuff like that. It's rather annoying. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so we talked about creating a new Windows user, and you still have the ability to Windows L to lock that screen and then log in as the other user. So you could theoretically be logged into two things at once in case for some reason you misplace something and it's stuck in the wrong user. You can go switch over to that. But really the goal is to have everything associated with that one, with this project, this audio project, soon to be video project, have it all in one user account. And you could even go so far as to make sure that permissions are restricted It doesn't have access to admin. It can't do anything else. And it is the thing that has like your web browser with all the correct bookmarks set up and all the logins and stuff like that are saved within that browser and et cetera, et cetera. So that it's not that experience, that user experience isn't polluted by the gaming setup that's normally reserved for another login on that computer. So it's clean. So it's a clean break. So the next thing after that is we need to talk about what platforms are going to be used. So it's going to be in your hands to have, let's say, your phone attached to a YouTube account or something like that. So if you're beginning a new YouTube account, you can set one up explicitly for this, and then you might have, let's say, two sub accounts in that, and one might be for just live streams. And it's like, okay, ever been to one of these channels and it's like 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 3 hours, 10 minutes, 3 hours, and you're like browsing through, and somebody who's just not interested in these 3 hour things goes through that, and is frustrated I will actually binge through somebody I like from the end, and every time I get hit by these hour and a half, whatever the heck, it pisses me off. And sometimes I will want to actually listen to those, but at some point, if I don't like the guy live, I want to skip it. So what some people do, and what I have done, is I will separate them into sub-accounts. They're like associated channels, and they're really easy for the admin to manage, because you just, for YouTube, you top right, click your account name, you can switch to another user, right? So it's easy. And what that does is that shunts all of a certain, let's call it a topic, into another account. And you can just constantly have one refer to the other. And so, for example, if we take a best of, so if episode A starts, we record episode A. Some people might see it live. It will get pumped out in that format. So YouTube will save a copy of it, but it goes into the live stream folder. I would review it, and I would take notes for episode B, right? But episode A also has the opportunity to cut it apart for additional material for episode B, but for additional material in the channel, and then a cleaned up live version or something like that. So I think maybe what we should do is something like, okay, episode A launches, it goes live, and it does not appear on a channel when it's done. It vanishes. So only the people who are live get to experience that. Then what happens is I review it, and maybe I take some notes and hand it to you to cut it up, and it'll get cut up, and it will be preview episodes, like maybe 2 or 3. So it would be like day 1, day 2, and it gets released day 3 as whatever, and then it gets re-uploaded 3 days later or something like that. So people that want to be in on it can come live, because none of this, we're not like broadcasters, we're not journalists or anything like that. So it can be delayed, and then we have these 2 or 3 days, or even a week for all it matters, of leading up, right? So channel A would have all these lead-up videos and references to the live stream stuff, and then the actual proper live stream comes up there.
Wouldn't you want to just throw up the main
right away?
Either right away or a day or two after.
Well, that's why I'm thinking a day or two after. And the reason I want to do that is...
Like the entire thing, or just you said you didn't want to? Or...
Well, no. So the entire thing would eventually get up, unless there's stuff that we want to just purge because we want to just, like, it happened live, but we want to edit it out because it's just too much garbage or something like that. Like, we had a stupid audio issue or something like that. But it does get released lagged, right? This is a thing that a lot of people do on something like Patreon, where they will have early releases. Some places do it like a month sooner, right? So they do it and they put it on Patreon right away, and then they delay it by a month, and then they put it on YouTube. Now, that's kind of torture and stupid. And
if it's current topics, then it's kind of dumb, but if it's like what I found about this or that, it's okay, I guess.
If it's rambly talking, then yeah, right? So, but the thing is, the experience is meant to be live anyway. So the question is, how do you get people hooked into the live experience? And the only notion I have is to have the lead-up videos and then the actual full previously recorded live thing delayed by a little bit. Current events be damned, because what I don't want to talk about current events. Not our current events.
Well, it can't be helped, but I mean, just...
Let's talk about, what's his name? Andrew Scheer being kicked out of the Conservative Party of Canada. Yeah, we're Canadians, by the way. Let's talk about Canadian politics. Let's talk about Canadian news. Today, there was a hailstorm, and, like, how bored would happen? Because honestly speaking, with the population of the United States, most listeners would be American. I think we'll amuse them with just how Canadian we are. They can hear me say about and just be...
What, so maybe just do definitely a 2-day.
Okay.
Release it 2 days after the live recording.
So I like the idea. So
then and then 1 day after. No. Live recording. Video gets released, and then 3 to 4 clips of topics of that.
Mm-hmm.
Have to set a maximum. Minimum can be 0 if anything, but there has to be a maximum.
So,
because who knows, during that day maybe something came up for that for whoever, and then they can't.
Okay. So here's how I'm thinking of it. We were thinking about live being Wednesdays and Sundays. Yeah, is that still okay with you?
Yeah.
So that seems okay with me too. So what I imagine is the number of days between Wednesday and Sundays. We got Wednesday. So let's say we live Wednesday, then we first clip Thursday, second clip Friday, third clip Saturday. We can even do an early fourth clip on Sunday but what I would like to do is 1, 2, 3, and maybe Saturday is 2 clips. Maybe no. Saturday is a third clip, and then Sunday is the full show from Wednesday, right? So we would do Wednesday record, so content, so Wednesday content live, Thursday content clip, Friday content clip, Saturday content clip, Sunday live, right? So there's a staggering. So and the Sunday we would record, and the live thing would get released the next Wednesday with clip, right? So there's an offset. So the live gets offset by that many days. Okay, so
wait, so Sunday live. When you say clip, just like chunks of whatever.
Best of, yeah.
Okay, so Sunday's recording. Monday's a chunk, or Monday's a clip. Tuesday's a clip.
Okay, so you're talking from Sunday. So Sunday show gets a clip on Monday, and then a clip on Tuesday, and then Wednesday's just live.
Okay, but are we releasing... Oh, the entire footage gets released Tuesday or Wednesday?
Wednesday. Oh, no. When it's live. Oh, that's a good point. Because we're... So
Tuesday gets the entire clip, or Tuesday gets the entire... Or gets
the full show?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're doing. I'm like doodling now.
Okay, so then
so
Wednesday is... Wednesday... So... Okay, so... Sunday's the recording, Monday's the clip,
Tuesdays.
Tuesday is the rebroadcast.
Tuesdays from Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Tuesday, the thing that I like doing, I like the idea. I mean, it's kind of hard, but I've seen it done really well by people that know what they're doing, or that learned, that eventually figured out what they were doing. So competent people actually have really wonderful intro stuff. Because the idea is you've only got one lead day in that particular example. One lead day that kind of advertises the release, the full release, the pre-recorded episode. And so I would like the idea of opening that episode with a best of that particular episode that's airing. So a person that hops in, maybe it's their first experience. And so it would be 10 minutes of the best of stuff in there. And so that's a little bit of extra work, but I mean, that's already kind of in the clip experience.
I'd say just find a segment that sounds good. Find a interesting segment, and it wouldn't be a 10 minutes, just a segment's up to maybe 10 minutes.
Well, or however, right?
However long.
And it shouldn't just be, well, okay, yeah. So something like that, even if there's duplication or something, we'll figure that out. But that's the general idea. And for the
double dipping's fine, but you don't want to just.
But it can't be long. Yeah. Okay, I understand. Okay, and then the Wednesday to Sunday cycle ends up having 2 days for clips.
Yeah. So Wednesday's a recording, Thursday's a clip, or Thursday and Friday will be a few clips. Maybe Wednesday gets a bit better.
Wednesday is, yeah.
Maybe Wednesday gets a bit better, or Wednesday's a possible longer recording.
You mean longer live or longer produced thing? I mean, we can just have longer clips on a Friday or something. Something like that. Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. I like the idea of having maybe a 10, maybe 15 minute for those preview clips.
And then Saturday will be the rebroadcast?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you understand. Okay, that works. That's a good idea. Okay, so we've got our cycle, got our time, our general notion is down. Okay. The next question is, let's begin with what platforms we want to use. My recommendation is YouTube because the world is still there, but Mixer is getting popular. Ninja's there. We can go to DLive. PewDiePie's there.
So so the other broadcast that I watched, this one guy who's an analytics guy who checked the things. For some reason, Facebook is growing. Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube are growing, but somehow Mixer isn't really improving at all, even though it pulled Ninja and a few other guys, but it's not doing much.
Personally, I don't care about Mixer, so I'm not surprised, because maybe I'm just average and most people don't care.
Well, it's the...
Why'd you bring up Facebook, though?
Because the analytics guy, he even said, like, Facebook's even improving, but how... So what's... Okay, so Twitch is owned by Amazon, Mixer is by Microsoft, Facebook is Facebook, and YouTube is Google.
At Alphabet Incorporated. Thank you very much. Google is a separate company now. The umbrella corporation is called Alphabet. People keep saying this Google thing, but it's important to get it right. Anyhow, I'm sorry, I'm being a...
It doesn't matter.
Okay, no, it doesn't matter. Correct.
As far as I know...
Okay.
YouTube is by Google. YouTube was by Google.
Sure.
I don't know if it was reacquired or anything, just like how I didn't realize League of Legends is now owned by Tencent.
Yeah. And
Tencent has their fingers in a lot of places.
Yeah, oh yeah. I think they bought Path of Exile as well.
Yep.
Which is really depressing, and I wish I knew that before spending more money on that game.
So anyhow, Facebook fudges, and what Facebook does to count their views and such is a bit skewed. YouTube or Twitch, well, who owns what's kind of not really important, but how each company does their thing. It's not. There's no standard for it everywhere else.
So
the argument was brought up that once you made an account, even though Ninja moved over to Mixer, most people didn't
go with them. Didn't jump ship.
Well, it's not jump ship. It's like, okay, so now have to make another account on Mixer.
Well, it's like the
mentality.
Oh man, what was it? Epic Games versus Steam, right? It's just, I don't know why people are up in arms about stuff like this. I don't mind having a million accounts. I use a password keeper for that stuff. So.
Yeah, password keeper, so it's the pain of signing up for that. If we're gonna go using that logic as well, there's Ubisoft. There's a few other.
Right, I get the idea. Right, so. Okay.
So, like, Steam was nice because everything was already there. But.
Okay, so there's restreaming, rebroadcasting that's possible. Right? So the live can be rebroadcast to a bunch of places. I don't know if Facebook's included, which might be a problem. I don't think we've got. I mean, theoretically speaking, a low-quality version could be streamed simultaneously.
We do have unlimited bandwidth now.
Actually, we do have a crazy fast internet connection now. Theoretically speaking, if your computer can handle it, we could have 2 instances of...
It should be fine. Just hardwired and we're good to go.
Streaming over Wi-Fi. I didn't even think about that. Wow. That would be... Our wireless is absolutely... We replaced the box. I don't know if you knew that, but we replaced that box. And it's still not very good. I think. I mean, it's
streaming over Wi-Fi. Someone hasn't seen Twitch live.
Wow. Okay, so what were we talking about? So the question will become, what platforms are important to, let's say, maintain a presence on?
It's 15 minutes. 15 minutes. If you still want to.
What is 15 minutes?
50.
50? Okay, so let's take a break.
10. Pause.
Yep. And we're back. Can you hear I can see my levels moving. Okay, so why not begin right now with opening up a text file for yourself and beginning a checklist?
Which is...
So, do we have a projects folder that you've been working with? And
I
just
believe so.
Okay. So... I have to get you a proper text editor as a start. I'll get you to use Genie.
I never use Notepad++.
Notepad++, I remember that thing. Okay, so let's start with moving your chair, moving your equipment. Start typing.
What equipment?
Laptop.
Would just be right here.
Microphone. Still. And you have a preferred chair. He moved his chair out because he was slouching. Because he slouches.
Still, this chair just kind of stops you. Or
Yeah.
It doesn't stop you, but it just fixes your posture at the same time.
Yeah, I was thinking about getting a kneeling chair for that very reason. Okay, anyhow, so I can hear my levels now. Sorry, I was muted there. Okay, so you were working on a checklist. So maybe you can make a separate to-do notepad or something like that. You could dump it all in one file for all I care for now, but that's a bad habit to start. So you can open up a second notepad as your to-do list.
Another one?
Yes.
Okay.
So one is your checklist that you're working on, and the other is your to-do list, which is a generic thing. Okay. So okay. And get Notepad++. Write it down.
Oh, wow.
See how this works? Okay. I mean, we may as well go down the list. Make a new user. Make template folder. You can write down something like restructure directories. I'll have to sit down with you and make sure that that's done the right way. So what about things like platforms? Okay, so Facebook does not currently allow in its terms of service an anonymous account, even though you can do it, right? But it doesn't technically allow it. That removes the idea of making a presence there.
So don't do the presence thing until it's
Right, until we decide on something like that. So that means that Facebook will not be a primary platform. I mean, I like rules, so, unless they're supposed to at one point allow anonymous accounts. So you can set up one as the team. But they've got like business accounts and stuff like that. So anyhow, I'm not setting up a business. So you can say make YouTube account. Let's start with just YouTube. Keep it nice and simple. What else? You are occasionally saving as your type. Never trust your notepad. Slow typer. Good lord. Okay, tab over to your checklist. Reboot. Check for updates. So check for updates, reboot. Doesn't matter what order it comes.
Save it first?
Yes, of course. Haven't you been saving Control S every sentence?
Let me put it in there first, and then go on with Control S. What was this? To do? Yeah, to do.
To do is pretty good for a to do list. To-do.txt. I mean, let's go the full 9 for this one.
Save as pre-check? No.
Checklist. Yeah, there is probably a better word for this particular checklist, but
I got a checklist before live.
Sure. Again, there will be iterative improvements. Don't worry. As long as stuff is shoved into the correct inbox, then it'll sort itself out over time. As long as you take your 20% time and commit at least some of that to cleaning this stuff up, it'll make tomorrow easier and the day after easier.
Okay, physical.
Remember, you want to be lazy but smart, as opposed to lazy and dumb. We'll get you there one day. Why is it taking you so long?
Just making adjustments.
Okay, so you put in check for updates and reboot?
Yes.
Because I'm going to start crossing stuff out. Don't say yes and then start typing as though you didn't do it.
Well, rewording things or making it more simple.
Doesn't matter as long as you remember this next time you see it. Because right now you're wasting time. I need like a glass of wine or something. Okay, so...
There's wine if you want to start drinking.
No. At some point, we'll call it vodka. It'll just have a glass of water. But I'll have like legit tequila or something on the side. Okay, so checklist. Somewhere just put export as FLAC. Just so we don't forget that. Go faster. What do you still have... So the way you make a text file is in Explorer, you right-click, new text file, name it, double-click it, type, Control S. You don't open Notepad first, and then save, and then browse to somewhere, and then give it a name. It's just so annoying. I experienced the entirety of the computer through a file manager, not through any program that I'm using.
Well, welcome to GUI.
Screw that, man. DOS all the way. Commodore 64.
Okay.
Is it okay? And in your checklist, in your checklist, put make backup. It doesn't have to be in the correct order right now. Okay? And I'll tab out to your to-do list. Create backup procedure. That might require I don't like backing up to USB sticks or anything like that, but it might require getting a USB hard drive or shunting files across the network or something. Like, we'll figure that out. But that is literally going to be the thing that gets done after a show or after any material is created. It's going to be dumped into a backup. Maybe also a backup, depending on how things work. Hey everyone, I'm an archivist. Everybody should be doing their backups, especially me. I have lost so much stuff. Okay, so got the pre-live checklist. For your checklist, check disk space, X number of hours, for example, or X number of minutes recording. Okay, and then mic test.
Mic test or just the entire recording test?
Sure, however you want to describe it. And we can have like stream test or something like that on the alternate.
Well, stream test, you would just go either just have a countdown timer when live is going in, or
my recommendation is, so for the YouTube channel, you have a maximum of 3 sub channels. So 2 would be public facing. 1 would be like big live streams and stuff like that. The other would be little clips. Maybe we'll change our minds. Maybe that's not a good idea. But one of them will just be hidden. It'll be there, and we'll stream to it privately. So my recommendation is having a full-on stream test that streams into a live empty room. And we can actually check the entire, because that's a real process from beginning to end. So we can actually go to, obviously, like another browser, private window, and view the stream, or log in as another user as a totally, like I log in myself and phone. And you look at the stream and make sure that it's working okay. So that would be the real test. And that would have to include the mic testing, the system testing, the bandwidth testing. But you wrote down disk space, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so next is putting your phone in airplane mode. So you're not receiving calls in the middle of the show?
Well, I can receive things, but it won't make a buzz or sound.
Oh, okay, so you can receive a phone call and it won't make noise?
Yeah, it'll just...
Is that normal? That explains why you don't answer your phone when I call. Or texts.
You barely call.
Yeah, why bother?
And
yeah.
you send a message through Discord, and I have that turned off.
Okay, so airplane mode is good. I
just turn off vibration, and all it would do is just light up.
Okay, so that's fine. We talked about in your to-do list, write down make templates. Make template.
Template folder, restricted directory.
Okay. And make a new Windows user.
Yeah.
And you've got YouTube account in there?
Platform, yeah, YouTube for now.
Okay, and in the process, in the checklist, you have export as FLAC, and just write in something like send to me. We need to figure out how you're going to get me stuff so that I can listen to it. And so
in the app,
maybe what we'll
list or the checklist.
In your checklist, it's going to be part of your process.
Okay.
But you're also going to be typing it again in the to-do list. Okay. So next is setting up a second monitor. You were talking about putting a TV up on the wall over there. I'm fine with that. So to do. I keep almost knocking this cable loose. You can still hear me? Okay. Next is, second monitor. So let's do spare keyboard so that if it comes down to it, I have easy access to a keyboard as well. Because I think I can just plug a USB keyboard into this and just use it. And that might actually help quite a lot.
You have to type for what?
I don't know.
Okay.
Because maybe you're too slow and frustrating and I need to reach and type at 130 words a minute.
Oh no.
I don't know. I might be slower now. I'm getting old. So we were talking about 5:30. That means you and I would get together for the checklist sooner than that.
15, 20 minutes earlier, maybe.
So, you're going to call it half an hour for now until we get lean and quick. Talked about time of day and people. Okay. Now, there's one idea that I've seen, and I might just go and rewatch. I'd have to go find it again. But where this one dude that I've seen, his live streams are just, they're awesome. I mean, he's a Brit, and already he's entertaining to listen to just because of the accent. But he's kind of a kooky guy, and what he does before the live stream begins is he has this prepared clip show of just random video memes, and it is wildly hilarious. I have no idea where he gets this stuff, but it is really, really good stuff. Reddit? Maybe off Reddit. Okay, so add on the to-do list sources of video memes. And that's something I would like to have a unique X number of minutes leading up to a pre-show of like, so leading up to the actual live is this meme stuff, because that tends to be eye-grabbing, attention-grabbing for people that are just surfing through. And it lets people log in quick and know, oh yeah, you guys, like today is okay, rather than waiting for that particular moment. It lets them check in over the span of that. I'm just making 15 minutes a thing because I think that's what this guy was doing. And so it lets a person check in to see if we're alive or dead, if everything's okay for that Wednesday or that Sunday. They can come in during that 15-minute period. Not right on time, or not early in an empty room or early with other people. God forbid they're going to have to interact with unmoderated trolls or something like that. Or bot-moderated trolls. I don't know what's worse.
I don't think you can... If it's bot-moderated, I don't think it's a troll.
Well, the trolling has to be subtle and really effective to dodge around the restrictions.
I mean, adding a space to the thing isn't really being...
A space to the thing?
So in League, whenever someone says bitch, instead of saying bitch, they just put B space itch.
I'm trying to remember, there was one game that would... it was Bloons 4. It's a Flash game. And there was one phrase that I couldn't use, and like it was like don't start next round and something like that, but because it had the word tit in it or something like that, it was like two separate words, but it ended with T. Don't start it. And it looked at that one blocked. Like, come on, I'm talking about not launching the next round so that I can prepare. Like, just what? And I wasn't learning, so I just kept getting hit by that. And I have to type it again. The devs don't care about that game. They just let it rot on the vine. Which is a shame, because it's a really good game. Now, they brought out Bloons 5, but it's like, oh, it's compatible with mobile, and it's on Steam, and blah, 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 and give us money. And I'm like, I don't care. I mean, I don't think it's running Flash. I don't think it is. Nothing should.
Like, the support for Flash is done at the end of this year. Newgrounds has it on proprietary. I'm
trying to figure out how the hell to uninstall it from Windows 10. Because it's still there. I actually got... not by it as an application is uninstalled. However, it's in Windows somewhere because the Windows update identified it with an update, and it should just be gone. And there's like, okay, well, you have to make sure it's disabled in Internet Explorer, and then you have to go and you have to run these commands as in DOS as the administrator, and then you've got to delete these files, and I'm like, well, can't, like, and there's no feature, just make it go away. So I hope that when it's what happens to half of the internet when Flash goes away?
Flash just goes outside to the lab for...
Like, the thing is, I'm an archivist, so how do I go when I have archives of Shockwave stuff, which I actually have, like, Shockwave videos saved that I don't even know how to play anymore.
There's an individual player.
There is, right? But if it's something like a game that I have downloaded offline, and I have a few.
If you have the SWF file, I think, you can use the individual player. Yeah,
really, to actually interact with it as a Flash program? Oh, I didn't know that. So I'll keep that in mind when I'm next figuring stuff out. I'm doing other stuff for the longest time. I've got a lot of other things to work on. So what about getting desktop speakers for that? Something that's better. Does that actually matter?
We could.
Well, I don't want to hear we could. I want, like...
Well, either yes or no.
Well, yeah, I mean, technically speaking, I do have spare speakers. What does that use? Does that use a headphone jack?
There's a headphone jack right here on the side, or you can do USB.
Okay, so in my case, the thing is, I would rather use a USB-powered set of speakers because... But, okay, so we got headphones, so maybe it doesn't matter at all.
And we just do the setup when we watch movies.
Or actually, because you're piping it out to a TV, you can do audio that way too, right? And the TV audio would probably be better than anything. And so that will be, when we're setting that up, that will remind us of that. Probably what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to invest in it. I'm going to use, so I've got right now, you might be hearing clicking and writing and banging and things tapping on the microphone because this is on although it's got a shock mount, it's on an arm that is clamped to the table we're using. And that means that anything that bumps the table is bumping the arm, is bumping the shock mount, is bumping the mic, and you're probably still going to have it picked up. Also, the microphone is sensitive enough that if I'm tapping somewhere near it, you're going to hear it. And there's no getting away from some things. But I actually have a boom arm meant for lighting, and I went through a special kind of hell figuring out how to have that thing adapted so that I could actually put this shock mount on it. And so I've already done the tests, and it all attaches correctly. So I will, for next time, I'll make it available, I'll bring it up. And I've got I actually have, you know how you've got ankle weights? And they're like little bags of ball bearings and that you can adjust the weight on. And you can put them around your ankles for additional weight for training or for exercise or whatever. So I've got those, and I can actually pull the bags out. And I'm using them kind of like the way you use sandbags as the counterbalance for a boom arm. So you can actually have it floating, and you can actually move it around really easily because it's counterbalanced. So this actual microphone setup is fairly light, but the full microphone that I would normally use is bloody heavy. And so having a counterbalance is actually really useful. If you don't use a counterbalance on a boom arm, which is okay, what you end up doing is you have to screw in that pivot point. So you've got the pole reaching up, and then you've got a bar across, kind of so it forms a T. And if you've got a lot of weight on one end, you kind of have to shift around where the pole is to give it some balance. And you have to tighten up that middle point so that it doesn't tip over and your microphone doesn't crash into your table or something like that. So what you do is you have on the butt end of it, you have a weight. And so the weight of the microphone and the weight of the back end are in balance. So you don't have to put so much tension tightening it up in the middle, which is actually important because you'll wreck that tightening point, which is actually for me. I mean, it costs money to get a boom arm, but I cheaped out, so it's not the best. Oh man, that's not a neighbor, but the little kid's got one of those electric cars that he can ride in. I love those.
Oh, there's the parents.
You didn't see the parents walking right behind him.
It's like we can't see when something's ahead of the other.
Was he wearing a t-shirt? He was stealthing. He was wearing black. It's daylight out. Okay, so boom arm I will figure out for next time for sure. And I'll have that set up early. That'll be kind of like our half an hour pre-setup that we'll do. And we've got our time slot. Okay, so I will help you with the project-related stuff. So my notes are done. I'm out of stuff to do. So I kind of have my own to-do list of stuff here. So I'm good. What else? we're pretty much done. I mean, this is just pre-launch talk. What about talking about the name of the thing? Because believe it or not, I've actually had a name.
Then we'll just go with it.
The name that I'm thinking?
I was thinking something to do with a veil.
With a what?
A veil.
A veil.
You know how theaters have the curtains and then they just pull away and then present whatever?
Oh, I'm not a theater guy, but I know that there are words for that. I don't want to learn about theater stuff to actually go and find that word. But there is one, I assure you.
Or something like related to like the action of pulling open the curtain and then...
Okay,
or blah, blah, to someone's mind.
So the name that I have is Lucid Indifference. The reason I can bring that up is because I own that domain name, and I have for very many years, and not done anything with it on purpose.
Indifference?
It's like apathy. It's like well-informed and not caring.
Lucid, you're kind of 10 years. Two phrases I don't really know off. Okay.
It's deep philosophy. I go to Wikipedia right now so I can laugh at you. You know both of these concepts.
Indifference, not really.
You don't know the word indifference? You are steeped in indifference. When you just don't care one way or another, you're indifferent. Like you would be, you would have a fierce opinion about certain things. But if you're indifferent...
Lack of interest, concern, or sympathy.
Yeah, that's you.
Yes.
Okay. Now look for lucid.
Express clearly, easy to understand.
That's me.
You express clearly to something that doesn't care.
What do you think? I think it works. And I've had this for longer than I've known you.
Easy to understand, concerns, easy to... Okay, sure.
Lucidity is also a concept where it's like the opposite of being intoxicated of some sort. And lucidity is like clarity, a sanity, stuff like that. And
it's like when... So my teacher gave me the "you're kidding," or he gave me "you're kidding" when I asked him to spell out the word soldier, because it's something I didn't use often or ever came across.
Soldier? Okay.
So I couldn't really figure out how to spell that word.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm the 40 and...
I mean, I was awful at English.
Okay.
And
Lucid Indifference it is.
Okay, so we had previously talked about licensing and ownership and business and all this kind of stuff. Like, it is a wonderful pipe dream to play pretend like you're going to be successful at anything. And as it turns out, it's work. Being good at something takes effort. Being recognized as by other people as being good enough for them to, return for anything. It's not necessarily meeting the expectations of an audience, but at least being entertaining enough to have an audience be around. That actually requires some level of competence. So I don't think it matters that we look so far into the future that we start planning this shit. But I really don't care if I transfer the domain to you, so it can be in your name.
Well, I just don't want to
privately, right?
I just don't want to be the dick that does something stupid against common sense and somebody has the foot up their ass.
Well, I still own me, so I don't care. I mean, that's my argument.
People using what's been out as an example. There's a while when I said the podcast with two girls.
Do you remember the name?
The podcast name was Call Her Daddy.
Call Her Daddy, okay.
So two girls...
Wait, what? That makes no sense. I'm not assuming gender or anything like that. Just makes no sense.
So, two girls were... One thought one was the business partner, the equal, but apparently the other... Or B thought it was the business partner of A, but A's significant other something shopped their podcast, shopped their brand around without B knowing.
Oh, wow.
Or at least B says she didn't know or something, and she thought she was equal and thought she had a say.
Okay.
And then the host group of Call Her Daddy just found this out through negotiations yearly, because things happen. Like, you either expand or get noticed, or you just...
Okay, so there was like a review, and a year-in review audit from the parent company.
And what was offered to Call Her Daddy was, you stay with us for this, and you get the IP back, which normally he says doesn't happen.
Okay.
So there's a bunch of other things and unprofessionalness and such. Another thing related to this, a Twitch streamer. So this group called FaZe Clan has their own brand and has their own brand and such. And this one guy, Tfue, threw himself into the internet claiming that, or this is from my point of view, anyways, he's saying that he signed up with FaZe Clan and he went over the contracts and said that this is unlawful, blah, 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 this, I got suckered in.
Mm-hmm.
But FaZe Clan, the group, says, okay, but we're sending multiple, so every year or so they redo the contracts, they redo the terms and conditions and such to him, but he says no, he just wants out.
Okay. Because
he's big and everything now, but he wasn't then. And then to add sympathy for his first post, when he did his first post, he said, like, people were drinking, blah, 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 when he was underage. And then after a while, when FaZe Clan saw that video, they said, well, okay, the drinking happened, but that wasn't us pushing you to do it. You just went out and did it yourself, and you made other kids do it as well. And then he just quickly swept
do it? You mean sign the contract?
Drinking alcohol. Underage drinking.
And how does that involve?
He made it seem like that company made him drink. Or he's like, drinking was involved, blah, blah, blah.
But why do we care if he was drinking? I'm confused here. So, because you're tying that into a contract. Are you saying that he signed a contract while drunk?
No, but he did stuff. It just seems confusing on my point, and I'm being fuzzy with all the details, but this was what was involved. How it was, I clearly don't remember.
Ladies and gentlemen, his explanatory powers.
Should we pull the first video? Because there's footage of those.
I don't think we should splice that in right now. That actually, copyright stuff like that is one of the challenges to deal with. Did you know that one of the reasons people shy away from using YouTube to actually live stream is because YouTube has the ability to just like axe a stream with no notice whatsoever. They just kill it.
They just kill it. YouTube mutes a section of it.
No, that's when it's posted after the fact.
Twitch
does that.
Live mutes.
Yeah, which, I mean, I don't particularly care. You mean while you're live, they do that? I didn't know that.
It's for the music you play.
But live, I didn't know they would do it live.
Think it's live.
I know about it happening after the fact. It's so frustrating. Which is why the OBS has a feature to also spool it out to disk while you're streaming. And if you got a decent enough computer, you can have like extra high quality on your disk being dumped, and however the streaming quality is appropriate to your circumstances being streamed out. So you can actually have a local copy, and the remote copy, maybe you make it public on Twitch. Maybe it's automatic for you. And then it might get muted a bunch of times. But you can say, oh, I don't care. And you take your local copy, not damaged by Twitch. Do whatever you want. You can like flip the bird to the copyrights and just upload it as is. Or you can selectively mute yourself and upload it to YouTube and see if the YouTube gods will actually let you because they might also flag your video.
They will definitely flag your video. That's why you have to do it in chunks, or at least.
But YouTube might actually be quite forgiving compared to Twitch, because they might just go, "This music is blah blah blah," and have the copyright claims.
That's if you're using music, or depends.
Right. So we're using the music example from Twitch. So Twitch will just mute bits, but it's damaging when it does that, because it damages its copy. So you keep your own copy, so you're safe from that, and you can upload it to YouTube. And YouTube might prompt you. It might make it so that you can't advertise, so that the ownership of the advertising quality is given to a license holder, like whatever. And it might also give you the tools to, like, you can go in, there's a video editor where you can select bits of audio track and then mute it yourself. So if they say something like, well, the last 20 seconds is this theme song for this whatever, can't do that. You have the ability to go in and just mute that clip, which that has hit a bunch of people.
Twitch just got recently, music industries recently hit a lot of people just a few days ago or so.
Really? I'm not in the loop. I've been looking at Canadian politics too much.
Twitch and the DMCA is really, really bad.
Oh yeah. Especially because you can falsely flag stuff because YouTube doesn't support that feature the appropriate way. You can lie when making a claim, but you can't lie when you're counterclaiming, yeah?
Well, it's not.
Which is just instant.
You can't lie to say that I have this, so essentially you're putting your information to whoever claims against you.
Yep, and they could have lied to theirs, but you are not allowed to lie. Right? And that's a mechanism for doxing people as a start. And if you can, there are people that do that and they just grab essentially the monetization of videos. And some of them are just so in the domain names, so for website names, if you were to go and purchase a whole bunch of words, of phrases, and just not do anything with them, just keep them, and then try to sell them, and you just sit on them for years for all it matters, because it's cheap.
Domain sharking, you can't do that? Or?
Yeah, so that's sharking. So you can imagine that there is an equivalent where there are groups or individuals out there that go through and troll through videos that might have something called there might be evergreen content. It might not be something very current. It might be just old backlogs of stuff that have this tiny little trickle of revenue, because the majority of a video's income is the first few days. Is in fact the first one day. And I can rant on about that because I've taken great notes on the turmoil of YouTube from almost the very beginning of when Google was taking YouTube over. I kept commentary videos. I actually have a very good backlog of that stuff. It would make for a documentary. Anyhow, so that, if you get good, I can provide a lot of this stuff to you, and you can make your first documentary. Is that going to happen? No. Okay. So what was I talking about? Yeah, so the equivalent of sharks will prey on this evergreen content, this back content, and those, the actual legitimate, for realsies in the real world, owner of that video won't contest it because it's a difficult process. It is partly legal as well, or they might want to protect their identity. And so this person just kind of takes it. And they get their trickle of money, and they just go on and on and on until they create this catalog of stuff that's legitimately not theirs, that they're making money on. And it is fully enabled by, this abuse is enabled by YouTube. And everybody knows it, and they know it, because they're not dumb. And people have complained about it.
There's been complaints, stir-ups, and by various other groups that are sick and tired of dealing with it.
Well, yeah. I'm a member of. Wow, this is that awkward moment when I can't remember the thing that I'm a member of. It's an advocacy group based in Germany, specific for YouTube content creators. And it's actually got the backing of the largest union in Germany, which is really freaking significant, by the name of something Mattel. Anyhow, it's and it has it's called the YouTubers Union. And I forgot that. Well, there's a lot of stuff in my brain. It's not like you forgetting stuff.
It's not like I was a part of it in the first place.
Well, okay, yeah. And it's one of those advocacy groups that actually collects people together and tries to perform legal action and communication action to YouTube. And they have been noticed by YouTube. They're in fact, it's a Facebook.
Being noticed and actually being able to do something about it are two different
the
things.
official YouTube Facebook account actually joined.
It doesn't mean a thing, though.
No, it doesn't. There's actually been, at the legal level, some lawyer communication and meetings and stuff like that. And some things have been communicated over, but...
For what has to happen, maybe first DMCA needs to be changed.
No, they just need to enforce it as it actually legally stands. We have to keep in mind this is American law too. So they just need to be subject to all American laws, including the DMCA, and just flip the bird to international, whatever other international laws, and just at least say we're an American company, our servers are in America, not all of them are, and we follow American law, and all of the subjects, all the people that use our platform have to be subject to American law, and that's freedom of speech, whatever definitions of quote-unquote hate speech or harassment or incitement or these concepts, but it's rooted in American law. That's what has to happen. And but all these platforms, and they're platforms because they curate stuff, they all skirt. They all just like pretend they're their own country. They ignore the laws in the real world. They manufacture their own terms of service, which is a convoluted mess. And I should know because I spent more than 4 hours just going through the YouTube legal stuff. And I just ran out of steam doing it because there was more. It's an unbelievable tangled mess. And so I mean, on that topic, since these are American companies, did you hear about what Trump was doing about this kind of stuff?
Didn't you tell me something about they're liable that they'll be liable for it soon?
Yeah, so this is American President Trump for all you people in the future, if his name's been purged from history.
I doubt it.
And he'll be infamous forever. I guess he got frustrated at people insulting him online. and so he's an old petulant child. And he is accidentally correct with so many things. It's funny. But he has already been told about he literally had a White House lawn meeting with a bunch of, influencers is the term,
White
YouTubers
House
and stuff.
Meeting?
Yeah. So people actually were invited to the White House lawn with him there to present stuff on the issue of social media and this stuff that's online, to talk about things like freedom of speech, at least from their perspective. Anyhow, so I know that he himself in person has been told by a rather inept random group of these people, but at least there was an attempt. He ignored it, but I know he knows about the backstory of the mess that's there. And so he has some of it in his head, and he's experienced a lot of the nonsense. And so what he decided is he should have been using the correct language, but there is an actual legal framework that talks about freedom of press, and there is this internet thing, this newfangled internet thing has the idea of hosting, where, well, if you're a host, let's say you're a literal host, a literal server for hosting websites.
Wasn't it just like how Mega got shut down?
I don't know about that. But under the framework I'm about to talk about, that wouldn't be allowed. Whatever that was. I can't remember the
Mega
drama.
had like a bunch of stuff. Mega's
still around.
They came back, but it's done differently now.
Sure.
But before then, they had like a bunch of They were essentially a huge hosting file host, and that had a bunch of stuff. And
yeah, okay, so
they got hit by the FBI.
So let's give the most obvious extreme. So say you're a random file host and you allow people to upload stuff, which is what you're describing, and random people upload kiddie porn. And it's like, okay, that's illegal, right? So and this is, let's say that everybody is in the United States. So we're talking about American law. The law was fuzzy, and what it said was the person who had the servers that where the ones and zeros were located on their hard drives, those data were their responsibility, and because those data were illegal, that person is held liable. So the hosting company is liable for what somebody else uploaded from illegal content from somebody else. And so there's this liability there. That's a nightmare.
There's a different way for the example. Let's just say a piece of land as the hosting company.
I don't know why you're trying to... My explanation was great. Did you not understand it?
In a computer term, yes, but let's...
Why we don't need to talk about the real world, because I'm still talking about internet land.
Okay.
Okay. Don't try to make analogies where you don't need them.
Okay.
Okay, so you can understand that if you're a file host or if you're a web host provider for business websites or for personal websites out there, or if you're an email provider, or FTP, you're freaking Gopher for all I know, you have data from your users. How can the host be liable for legal issues with the data that's passing through their service? So the United States enacted a law whose name I can't remember, and it is a variation on the law that exists to it's like a twist on freedom of press in the United States, and it goes, if you're a platform for other people to use, so you're a file host, you're a hosting provider for websites, and this sort of stuff. If you're a service that other people use, you yourself are not held liable. This is where the DMCA comes in. So if you yourself are hosting movies that are pirated, you yourself are not held liable, legally liable. Otherwise, you'd just be creamed. But the individual people responsible for those files are liable. So you have a DMCA request which can actually bypass the users, go directly to the host, say, hey, host, I am the legal owner. Theoretically, you provide proof, but that doesn't really happen. You're like, hey, I'm Warner Brothers. Just remove this. And the host goes, okay. And sometimes what happens is they give like a backdoor to some of these companies. They give them tools to just to flag certain stuff, and it just gets removed by the mechanics that host provides for them. Anyhow, so that DMCA was meant to protect, to shelter the services that random people use, occasionally illegally, right? Now, that also protects Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and et cetera,
all social media platforms,
because users use them and they might do illegal things. So they might, for example, incite violence. They might, on Twitter, hashtag kill all men, which was a trending tag. They might, call for the extermination of Jews, which is a thing, which exists on all those platforms. And you, right? And though there's stuff that's hate speech, there's stuff that, right, that's incitement to violence, there's stuff that's personally threatening, there's doxing, but the equivalent, we got to take some time.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll finish this thought. So the equivalent of the DMCA protects these social media platforms, shelters them from the liability that they would have, because the ones and zeros are hosted on their servers. It's hate speech emanating from their devices. It's in their hands. It's owned by them, but they're not liable. And so the DMC shelters them. But the thing is, these platforms have been curating the content selectively. So they shadow ban, they have ranking systems that boost certain content. They're selective. So like Kill All Men is okay, but Kill All White Men, that was banned. That wasn't allowed, which is kind of surprising, right? But Kill All Women, that would be bad. Selectively, right? Okay, so those selective tags, and this is a Twitter example, mean that because those choices are being made by that platform, they are no longer a platform. They are now curating their content, which makes them liable for the stuff that they're curating. Now, that is a really difficult distinction. It's called the platform publisher distinction. So like a newspaper that prints an attack article on somebody could be held responsible because they're the ones publishing that, right? They're held liable for their own speech or whatever you want to call it. So libel exists and slander exists and this kind of stuff. Defamation. So what Trump did is, again, being a child, he went, social media platforms should, by dictate of me, should not be protected by this anymore. He didn't invoke the platform publisher thing, which is a shame, because there's a very specific legal framework for that. He just went like double middle finger, executive order. I have no idea what's going to happen with that, but that is going to be a glorious storm. Let's take our 10-minute break.